Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Bex and today I have a paranormal experience of my own to share with you. And this channel is going to be about different, ghost stories, paranormal stories, as well as different mysteries, true crime, things like that. And if you have suggestions for things that you want me to cover on this channel, feel free to write them in the comments below and I will do my best to get to them. So my story is about a office I used to work in. A few years ago, I joined AmeriCorps Vista, which is a national service program in the United States. And you work for local government organizations or nonprofit organizations. And I ended up working for a local government organization. I moved states to do this. I was in, my early 20s. This was a few years ago, and I just kind of, wanted to start fresh. So my job at this program, it's a year-long program that you commit to, and my job was doing community outreach and marketing and PR and things like that for this local government organization. And we, through AmeriCorps, you do have to have regular kind of meetings and things like that with other AmeriCorps Vista members. So it was through these meetings that I met another Vista member who also worked in the same office complex as me. So he kind of told me more about the campus and that it was haunted. So this was, the beginning of my time working there. So I hadn't been there long. I hadn't really, been in the building enough to catch on to this myself. But what he told me definitely creeped me out. So he said that the campus used to be the state psychiatric hospital. And I researched to confirm that when he told me, and yes, it did used to be the state hospital is what they called it. So, and he said, it's haunted. And, I believe in ghosts, so I wasn't like, oh yeah, right. But, at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, it's an old building. It's an old psychiatric hospital. Is it really haunted? Yeah. So, the history of this particular building was that it was built in 1842, and it was actually one of the first hospitals in the United States to cater to people with, mental health issues and things like that. So it's an old building, 1842. Back in the day, there was a female ward and a male ward, and the nurses actually lived on these patient wards during their shift intervals. And then in 1899, they actually built a nurses' annex for them to live in. The facility was closed in 1989, so the year I was born. That's when it closed, and the services were moved to a new hospital. And that building that the old hospital is in is now used for, like I said, local government offices, and some parts of the complex are still abandoned. So yeah. Now my friend told me that there were tunnels that run under the buildings, and they go in between the buildings. It's a pretty big campus. There are lots of different sections, all these old brick buildings. And he said that there are tunnels down there, and they're kind of used for storage for the different offices. But he said that there are still hospital beds just chilling down there in these creepy, dark tunnels. So I actually went down in those tunnels once to help my boss like get some stuff out of storage for like an expo that we were doing, and I didn't see any hospital beds, but we were only in like a small section of the tunnel. I mean, like I said, these tunnels, they go on for quite a while, so I believe it. And I've looked up, you know, the history of this. I mean, if you look at like for my state, there's all these like top 10 haunted places, and this building is always on it. And I have seen some of these articles mention the tunnels and that there are still like beds, hospital beds, just down in these tunnels. So as I, you know, worked there more, I actually did start to experience just some weird, creepy things, and then some full-blown paranormal things. So we're a really small office. There was only 8 employees that worked there, and some of them were like part-time. So I worked there full-time, and I was usually the first one in the office in the morning and the last one to leave. I only lived like 5 minutes away from the office, so it was a super easy commute. Not like the one I have now, but I digress. So, you know, so I spent a lot of time in that office just alone. And the way it was set up was we had a bunch of different like cubicles. So my cubicle was the first one when you walked in the door. Like it was right across from the door. You walk in the door, there's, you know, the wall of my cubicle. And, you know, when I was alone in the office, I often felt like someone was standing right outside my cubicle. And I would get up and go look, see, you know, if someone was there, they needed help, information, and no one was there. And this is in line with a lot of stories from other people who work in that office complex. They often feel like they're not alone when they are, you know, or at least they don't see anyone there. So, you know, that was one thing that I felt a lot, but it wasn't like scary. I mean, I never felt like I was, you know, in danger or anything like that. So, you know, it was kind of whatever. And, you know, you often heard footsteps and noises and things like that when the hallway would be empty. And I just kind of passed that off as like, well, it's an old building and noises carry. Like there are different floors, so those noises could be coming from the floor above, you know, the floor below, or just another section of hallway, and the noise is just carrying. So that I don't, you know if that's paranormal or not, but you know, it is creepy when you hear footsteps and noises and you go check the hallway and there's no one there. So, you know, those things I could kind of explain away as just being like me getting freaked out because I'm like alone in an office, you know. But there were definitely a few things that I could not explain away. So the first thing that was really, I would say, paranormal was something that happened one day during lunch. So we had a small kitchen area with like a little lunch table, and I had like a few cabinets and little tables and stuff that we could just use for storage. And on top of one of those tables was a mini fridge where we would all keep our food. And you know, the mini fridge had just some odds and ends sitting like on top of it because you know, it's an office, you just put stuff everywhere. So some of the stuff that was on it were like vases and things like that. So, one, you know, oh, and this area, I mean, it is in the back of the office. There's like cubicles in front of it, and beside it, there's no like windows nearby or anything like that. It's pretty like a closed off space, like as closed off as you can be with like cubicles. So on this particular day, we were just eating lunch at the table, just chilling. Everybody was at that table. Nobody was up and moving. Nobody was coming into the office. We didn't have any visitors, nothing. And suddenly one of the vases that was on top of that mini fridge just fell to the ground out of nowhere. Like I said, no window was open to create a breeze. No door was open. Nobody was walking around. Nothing. It just fell. So we were all pretty shocked because there was just no reason that it would fall like that. And none of us could remember it being like on the edge of the fridge, like teetering on the edge. Because I mean, like, why would you put a vase of all things like right on like the edge? It was probably close to the edge, but like, none of us remembered it being like teetering on the edge where it could fall at any minute. Like, you're gonna put a vase on top of a fridge, you're gonna put it well far enough away from the edge to avoid something like that happening. So we were all pretty creeped out, and that is one of the things that I've also heard that happens in that building is things getting knocked off of tables and shelves and things like that when nobody is around to do that, and there's no, wind or breeze or something that would cause that. But perhaps the strangest thing, and definitely the creepiest thing that ever happened in that office was one afternoon. It was just me and the administrative assistant in the office, and we were just doing work. I was in my cubicle, she was at her desk, we're doing our thing. And we had this electric typewriter in our office that one of the employees used to type up like our mailing labels. So it's a typewriter, but it's, an electric one. It's not like the super duper old school ones, but still pretty old school. And she had used it a few hours ago, but she had long since gone home. I mean, that thing was shut off. Nobody had used it since she, used it a few hours ago. And the office was quiet. We're just doing our thing. We're working until we hear this strange clicking noise. And I looked out of my cubicle, and we just looked at each other and both realized that that was the typewriter typing on its own. So me being, a little creepy nerd, I wanted to put a piece of paper in it and see if like a message was being typed, but she freaked out and she just like unplugged it. So I didn't get to find out if there was a ghost trying to communicate, trying to write us a message, but it was definitely really creepy. Like, I mean, it was pretty creepy. I'm sure there could be some explanation, like a power surge suddenly that made it start clicking. I don't know. I'm sure somebody could come up with some explanation, but I mean, that thing had been like unused for hours. I mean, and then all of a sudden started typing. So we couldn't explain it, and we definitely told our coworkers like when they were back in the office, and everybody was, really, really freaked out. So that is kind of the biggest thing. I mean, nothing else that exciting happened during my year working there, and that my former employer has actually moved to a different office, not because of ghosts, but just for other reasons, and I work somewhere else now. But it's definitely a creepy story that I think about a lot, and I'm always just like, I wonder if we put paper in, what it would have said. So I hope you guys enjoyed this creepy little story of mine. If you've had any paranormal experiences yourself, I would love to hear them. Go ahead and write them in a comment down below. Like I said, any suggestions that you want me to cover, any, urban legends, myths, creepy stories, missing persons cases, and true crime as well, you can go ahead and write it in the comments, and I will try my best to get to them. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.